On today's episode, we're making the case that your next 6 months of pipeline might already be sitting in your CRM. Closed lost, ghosted, partners whose deals fell through, clients who moved on. These deals come back 6 months, a year, sometimes 2 years later, and they come back to whoever stayed on their radar. We're going to walk through where that hidden pipeline lives and how to stay visible until the timing churns.
All right, so we know most agencies have kind of this instinct, right? They chase whoever seems to need a project right now, and a lot of it is just this reactive, like, all right, we need to find somebody who can sign very quickly. But the truth is that only a small part of the market is buying at any given moment. I mean, we know this. Like, anytime you do like a big cold outbound campaign or something, like 99%, maybe even more, of people aren't in market to buy, and so you actually have to look back and realize that the people that you've already talked to are probably much warmer. And in many instances, there's not much competition for them as well. Even if you might have, they might have ghosted you, they might have gone no response or whatever. And so I think this is an important concept to bring as we think about developing a pipeline.
Yeah, so if you look at our CRM, right, and we have so many kind of closed but lost deals. It's almost like a graveyard, right? It's like you mark it lost, you move on, you never think about it again. But if you take a step back, that's like years of conversations, years of relationships with people that are just sitting there in the CRM.
Let's actually dig into, though, like, why do agency founders, and this includes us in the past, right,
Mhm.
kind of, why do we treat it like a graveyard? And I think part of it is not necessarily about any kind of process or anything, but maybe it's best put as an ego problem, right? Because a lot of times these kind of deals that we lost, it feels like a rejection, right? It's like losing definitely
Mhm.
stings. And so, to kind of have to go back, reach out to someone who said, "Hey, we went with someone else, or we've gone a different direction, or we found someone that was a better fit." It just feels like you're signing up for another round of rejection, because then, like, oh, you already, what sometimes the instinct is, oh, they already rejected us. I don't want to ever, feel that again. And so, I think a lot of times, founders might be, too much in their feelings about, what this, what an initial rejection could be like.
Yeah. And so if you think of an idea, like how do you break that spell of like, if it stings for the founder and like you don't want to reach out, like, yeah, like look externally. Could you hire a BD person or a salesperson tomorrow? And like, this is their job. You hand them this list and you say, you know, go for it. They don't have all that baggage and all the emotions attached to the deals and conversations where you lost before. Cause that, yeah, there's nothing personal to them. It's just a list of names that they have to go through. So, if you think back and whatever the decision was before, like if it was the prospect had to go in another direction, if it was a procurement thing, like it wasn't personal to it's not personal to you. So I think that might be a good opportunity to have someone fresh take a look at that list.
Yeah, or just get over it. Is the
Yeah,
other.
or get
Yeah.
over it. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
other approach. Is yeah, get over it, and yeah, realize that there's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah. So, as we dive in, kind of, I think just the mindset shift here is, every past conversation where someone showed any kind of interest. Remember, these are people that came to you first, with interest, right? Treat them as an asset. And just to kind of put this in the context of what we're talking about overall, right, before we go further, is, we talked about the agency growth engine that we talk about, just the different aspects of it. So this is really the relationship development component of it. In a prior episode, we talked about the proof side of things and the importance of building out proof. Well, this is now the relationship development aspect of it, and definitely this idea of kind of nurturing and turning prospects, even old prospects, into fresh leads.
So let's let's dive into the groups of people in your pipeline. So we've defined five pools of we're calling latent pipeline, and the first one is prospects that were kind of close, you lost a deal, or they said, not now, like they deferred the engagement. So these are prospects that at some point raised their hand and said, hey, we have a need, and you engaged a conversation and you went down the process. And ultimately they may have turned you down that initial time, but it doesn't mean that that potential for that relationship is dead. And if you think about the reason, there are many reasons why a deal died, but just thinking about it matters. So, was it a budget issue? Was it a timing issue? Did they have like a reorg internally? Like a lot of those like things can change, right? Like suddenly they have budget, suddenly you have a new team member, suddenly like it became the highest priority in their minds. So, I think that is an important group to target. But then, you could also look and say, hey, these weren't even our ICP at all. Like we should never have spoken with this group. There was, your service offering wasn't there. The fit wasn't right. Maybe not that group, but so think about yeah, like why the deal mattered, and look at the things that could change from a situational standpoint.
This is where, yeah, definitely a timely note is, kind of key for them, right? And so, yeah, just, thinking about, kind of having on the radar, like, what's happening to them. Is there some kind of new hire going on? Maybe they hired a new director of marketing or a CMO. Is there a kind of funding round that just happened? Or, maybe you kind of hear through the grapevine, maybe through one of your tech partners or whatever. Hey, so and so is kind of thinking about a replatform. Those are all great instances to kind of, find a moment to reach out and kind of turn these, like, closed lost not now prospects into fresh leads.
Yeah, this is a huge bucket of opportunity.
Yeah.
The next pool is are the deals and prospects that ghosted you or they went quiet. So, you may have had a bunch of conversations, gone down the path, and we've seen this quite a bit where they just went silent for whatever reason, and that wasn't like a hard no. Like it wasn't like they said like you're not a good fit or we didn't go with you for any particular reason, but maybe their priorities changed. Maybe like the champion on the client side, like they got busy, or maybe the project that they were talking to you about, it got shelved for another time, and they never really bothered to follow up and, and tell you. So, like we've kind of written off. It leaves kind of a not a great taste in your mouth, and you might have feelings got hurt a little bit, and we may have moved on, but these are also great opportunities to
I,
reactivate.
yeah, and this is where honestly I like two stories here that are like super relevant to this because I'm like, well, how many times have I personally ghosted tons of service providers, right? And I think about like more recently. So I was trying to move some stuff out of my storage, and I needed movers for it, but I only had this like small window of time where I could make that move happen. Otherwise, I had to punt it to another month or something. And I did a lot of research, found the moving company I wanted to work with, and then I was like, "Hey, can you guys do this time?" And they got me a quote, and they're like, "Oh, we're not available this time, but we're available these times." And I'm like, "Oh, just not." And, I read their email, and I'm like, "Oh, this is not going to work. I'll have to come back to it later." So in essence, I just ghosted. I never responded
Yeah,
to that, and then so
yeah,
it's just kind of, their quotes sitting there, and they've kind of sent me a couple of reminders, but I'm like, "Oh, I'll get to it when I get to it," and I'm sure I'll reach back out in a couple of months when I'm like, I actually have another slot that I could use. So like from their seat, yeah, it's probably feels like a ghost, but they should keep
yeah,
reminding me because at some point the time is gonna line up again, and I'm gonna engage with them. And more extreme case was I was trying to get my what do you call it, deck power washed. And so I got a quote. This was like 2+ years ago. I got like a quote, and I was like, all right, all ready to go. But for whatever reason, like just something came up, and I was like, hey, can't do it this season. Maybe it was like it was like their scheduling also. And I just like completely forgot about it. And then like a couple years later, I think they were just kind of going through the exercise of hitting up old contacts, and then I was like, oh yeah, I got to do the power wash, and so I booked it right
yeah,
away, and then they were able to get that business. So like, these things happen. We do it ourselves. It's just kind of human nature. So like there's no malice. I wasn't like, oh yeah, like I took these guys for a ride and I'm gonna ghost them. It's just stuff comes up, the priorities. Like this is an important thing is a lot of these, especially clients that are looking to hire agencies, they probably have like 4 or 5 other initiatives that they're juggling, and this is one of them. And sometimes it just gets put on the back burner, and you know, don't take it personally.
Yeah, that's it. I think that's exactly it where, you're not there to like, relitigate like what happened. Like, oh man, why did you didn't respond to us and, like put them on a guilt trip or anything like that. It's, yeah, just like fresh, if you want to reactivate this group, just like fresh, like, share something useful to them, just be top of mind and, start that conversation like nothing happened. Right. So low pressure ask.
Yeah. I'll take the next one, the number three. So partners and refers whose deal didn't pan out, right? So this is like, especially if you are in an ecosystem where there's a lot of kind of partner collaboration. So let's say these are agencies, maybe even like investor types, or even tech partners who are bringing you leads and you're bringing them leads, and there's a lot of that kind of interaction going on. And sometimes you're going to have these partners, especially kind of early on in your relationship, who might have a referral, or they might be like, hey, let's like do a pitch together where we're going to do maybe like the branding part, you guys do the web part, or we're going to do the you guys do the web part, we'll do the paid marketing part, whatever it is, right? And sometimes you're like, oh, cool, there's action, you quote, and you're like, all right, there's momentum, but then all of a sudden, like, like the deal dies or something happens where like, it just doesn't stops moving. And I think, that kind of one way to take it is like, all right, like these guys, their deal kind of sucked. It didn't work out. And, like, all right, forget about them. Right. And I think that's the wrong, it's just like, no, like these guys went out of their way to kind of bring you in on something. There's probably, it just didn't work out this time. You know, definitely an opportunity later to continue to re-engage with them.
Yeah, and I think, in that it's so easy to forget. Like you may be one of many partners that they have, and if you're not top of mind, then the next opportunity they'll just go with whoever they think of then. But it's easily a track that we've done in the past where we've pitched on one deal, and we like that whole thread in that relationship just totally dropped off.
Yeah, I mean, a great example here is, in our Bear Holdings agency, BX Studio. They do a lot of like B2B marketing websites, and a lot of their deal flow does come from partners. And I think CEO Jacob and his team. I think Todd, who's kind of the heading up a lot of these agency partnerships there. They do a great job of staying top of mind, in terms of like sharing with these partners. Hey, like this is a recent launch that we did that might be relevant. And so I think that kind of discipline has been great for continuing to stay top of mind to these partners.
All right. The next pool is churned and past clients. So these are people that you have worked with in the past, and clients have various reasons why they and ended engagement. It could be things like they got a budget cut and they need to cut back on their spend. Their internal strategy could have changed where they just don't need what you provide, or they could have brought stuff in higher. But I think the key here is, if their experience working with you was good, then that door remains open with that client. So I think, if you think about, yeah, we talked back in episode 25 about this concept of an engagement yield, and basically the benefit from a engagement that you do with a client doesn't stop when the contract that you specifically worked with them ends. So if the client liked you, um, and enjoyed that experience, like that person could bring more referrals, more references, and more work down the line.
Yeah. And, I think in this situation, you want to, stay in touch like a peer, it's just kind of, hey, look, we have a real relationship, right? Instead of somebody kind of trying to keep going back to the well and be like, hey, you got another project for me? You got another project for me? It should be more like, no, like, hey, we have a real relationship. And, let's talk like we do, which is like, what do friends do? It's like, hey, let's share what's new with each other. Hey, let's ask questions about like, yeah, what's going on in your life and what's going on at work. Congratulate wins if you see, them happening. And then, yeah, just be in that kind of, yeah, top of mind that is like easy to rehire. It's not, you're not somebody desperate that's kind of like, hey, like, always knocking on the door looking for the next thing.
Yeah, that's one interesting thing, especially for the larger organizations where if they hired you in the past, you've gone through procurement, it is
Yeah,
actually easier to hire you again because you're
sure.
already vetted and you're in the system. But sometimes they just may forget about you. So kind of reactivating that and being top of mind could get you easily in the door again.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I think this is the last one is, and this is something that I think is super important, and why going deeper into an organization always helps is the people themselves. So, these are when you think about kind of latent pipeline, right? It's not just the company, but it's like, within that company, you might have talked to multiple people during that kind of initial sales process. So even if you were rejected, or like ultimately like ghosted or whatever it is, like you might have touched, several different folks. It might have been like, someone on the IT side, someone on the marketing side, someone kind of on the e-com side, or whatever it is, right? There's like multiple folks, and these people don't stay with that organization forever. They end up going other places. So yeah, you always have to think about the relationship is with the person, not the logo. And yeah, these champions or whatever you want to call them change jobs every few years, and yeah, the new roles come with new budgets, and there's new needs, and so yeah, it's definitely an instance we've seen so many times throughout the years.
Yeah, I can think of, yeah, I'll share a couple examples, but one was this head of marketing for a tea company that we worked with. We built a e-commerce site for them. And then that project kind of continued and we ended up parting ways. But that person, the head of marketing, who actually wasn't our day-to-day contact, we may have spoken with her a few times through the engagement. She ended up going to another like large food services company, and they had a need for a website replatform. And then she remembered our experience working with us, and throughout this journey, had reached out every like 3 to 4 months just to like touch base, like congratulate her on a new role, and just stay top of mind on like what's going on, and have a call and just catch up. So we ended up working for the food services company, and then she ended up moving to another company. So I think it was 3 or 4 different companies that she worked with. We were able to kind of continue that relationship with the person, not with the company that was the original client. So I think that type of thing kind of happens kind of time and time again. And
Yeah, and I think just the practical takeaway here is like track people, right? Not just accounts, right? And I think yeah, there are tools out there to kind of help you get these alerts whenever they change jobs, and these past champions are definitely the ones who are very likely to bring you along for that ride.
so let's get a little bit more specific on like how does staying on the radar of these people actually look like. So there are two kind of lanes that kind of we'll go through. So the first one is we'll call the direct and systematic approach, right? So this is literally, you go through your CRM, so the close loss, ghosted, past clients, like all of that full list of people, uh, kind of going through and like walking through that on a fixed schedule, just having that habit and discipline to kind of do that on an ongoing basis. And not, yeah, it's like typically you might do it when you like realize like I have no pipeline, and it's like shoot, like it's reactive, and like you start going through your CRM trying to hit up people. Like no, this is more of the kind of ongoing effort there.
Yeah,
And
and actually,
yeah,
what a
yeah,
good thing comes to mind. Like, you should actually do this when you feel like you have the most opportunities. In
yeah,
some
when
ways,
you're
like
the busiest. Yeah.
yeah, when you're the busiest and you're just like, let's say you're drowning in leads and you're like, oh my god, like it's hard to keep up. That's actually a great time to do this. It's counterintuitive, but it's kind of like, no, trust us, because what this does, because there's a long lead time to this, and it's almost like you have to plant these seeds here, because guess what, the that like surge of leads that you might be experiencing now, it's inevitably gonna kind of ebb, and it's gonna go down again, and so it's right there you want to strike, and then give yourselves the opportunity to nurture and develop some of these leads for later.
And yeah, what does that look like? Default baseline is sharing something relevant. So like here's a launch that we did, a recent launch. Here's like an audit or a result of the work that we did, and just more. just trying to be helpful, useful, and like share some examples, and not have any like hard ask for anything. It's more just to stay uh, top of mind. And then also just thinking about timing. There's just keeping in on top of what's happening in their world. So, like, let's say the company that they're at got a round of funding, and there was something relevant there, or they hired a new CMO or someone else on the team or CEO, like whatever the role is that um, uh, is related to their world, or a conference. Like, hey, are you going to be at this big industry conference? Like whatever it is, it's trying to find the opportunities that feel relevant to the ongoing reach out.
Yeah, and honestly, like this is where and this is definitely a separate topic, but like the importance of if you have like a pretty robust like marketing motion where like let's say you're putting on different kind of webinars, events, like private dinners, at these conferences, you're like sponsoring happy hour, like all those become like a great excuse to reach out to these old prospects or old past clients or whoever, and just re-engage them because it's kind of like, hey, we're doing this thing, it's free, like we'd love to have you come and be a guest. And so I think like that's where the marketing goes hand in hand with these efforts.
So the next lane is called more of the ambient activities. So it's just basically showing up where they are, and driving kind of the background awareness. Um, and some like tactics here are, like when you're in the conversation with a prospect, like connecting on LinkedIn with them, like while the deal is going on, versus like after it dies and you're trying to like add someone and they don't
Yeah.
accept your connection. Um, so I think it's like the timing matters there, and just getting them connected helps open up that channel where they can see your content. Um, the other thing is like your newsletter. If you have a newsletter, also in the same vein, like during that process, when there's a natural moment, ask, "Hey, can I add you to our newsletter where we share a bunch of hopefully helpful things to you?" And while you're in the deal, again, not after the deal dies and you're trying to scramble to get that permission. So I think it's getting the framework in place uh, at the beginning.
Yeah. So this like there's a story that comes to mind here where it's kind of similar to your story, like the 6 year thing. And I remember like this is actually like 10 plus years, which is crazy. But like I remember 10 years ago, connected with like a founder of like a health tech startup. And like we pitched her on stuff, but ultimately like she went in a different direction. But like I did add her to LinkedIn, and so over the years,
Yeah.
like I think she saw, and then like I was like posting a lot more and more over the years, and it's so funny because like out of nowhere, it's like 10 years ago, and she reaches out by LinkedIn DM and is like, "Hey, like you pitched to me like 10 plus years ago. I saw that you're like, posting about like, these types of websites. And I'm at this, I'm now like, head of marketing at this like much bigger health tech company. And yeah, I need your help on something." And so that became a very, valuable opportunity for one of our agencies. And so, and that was like 10 plus years. So it's crazy
Yeah.
where the ambience, of like just being connected, showing up on the feed and all those things can really have a payoff.
Yeah, and it doesn't like they could have been completely like silent, like no likes, no comments, no responses.
Lurking.
And
Yeah.
it's just like, yeah, just lurking, but they see it, it's like in the back of their minds, they say, "Oh yeah, like Peter posted this thing." Like, okay, cool. Like that's what they're up to. Just like filing it away. And then, you never know the timing when they'll need something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the best case is when you have this like cross referral type of thing where you might be influencing past clients or past partners, and they may be asking each other, or other people might be asking them, "Hey, do you have a recommendation for an agency for blank?" Right? And you may be top of mind to the recommendation versus for the person who actually got the information firsthand. So there could be a effect that goes way beyond your direct network and the people in your newsletter list or LinkedIn connections.
Yeah. And, I think kind of we always have to tie this back to a degree of like positioning because, all this really only works though if, what you share is genuinely relevant and the work is good. And it's kind of like, you have the tighter the ICP, the more it's going to land. Because let's say, yeah, if you've been all over the place and you're posting all this work about a category that kind of is very irrelevant to some of these folks in the past, then it's going to land a lot less effectively. So yeah, once again, it kind of goes
Yeah.
back to why it's so important to have that foundation.
Yeah, there's a lot of noise out there, right? You get all these newsletters, and if it's too like, you just end up ignoring it. Even if you keep getting the newsletter for years, ignore it, or the posts on LinkedIn. Like, if it's not relevant and um, effective, and the work is good and helps you, then yeah, you just end up ignoring it. So yeah, that's a good point.
Cool. All right. So just to recap, right? 5 pools that we talked to, right? That you can kind of mine for leads. So it's your closed lost, the ghosted pile, your partners that, you might have not worked out with initially, past clients, and, the people, not the logos. And so on top of that, 2 lanes we talked about, right? The systematic direct touches and then the ambient presence through, some of your marketing activities. And yeah, the long game is stay visible until their timing turns, because inevitably it will.
hmm Yeah, so I guess that is kind of the homework. So open your CRM, go through everything that Peter just outlined, and see where, yeah, there was a fit. And that is your hidden pipeline ultimately. So if you can go through, let's say, pick 10, and then send something worth mentioning and relevant to them this month, and then go through your, we'll call it the ambient channel. So how many of those 10 people are connected on LinkedIn? How many are in the newsletter? And then try to like fill that gap so that you're connected with those people from your CRM.
Yeah. And yeah, just I think the big takeaway here is like, oftentimes you don't need more leads nearly as much as you kind of need to think about, yeah, going the extra mile with some of these opportunities that you've already earned. So yeah. So till next time, thanks for joining us. And yeah, have a good one.
Thanks.